What's up, sixth grade? So today you're doing lesson 5, day 3. Now in lesson 5, day 2, we were finding percent of a number. We were finding the part of a number that was the same as the percent. So today's a little bit different. Today they're going to give us the part of the number, but you have to find the whole amount, which is a different type of problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through 2 strategies, the picture it and model it strategy, and then we're going to be working on some problems on page 43. So before we start, you need to have your book open to page 42 and you need to have a calculator on you. If you don't have those things, pause the video and go get them. Now, second, you need to know that when you're doing problems here, it's okay if you're not sure, you give it your best shot. It's okay if you make a mistake because you'll get a chance to fix it when you're watching me go over the problems. And finally, make sure you follow the directions I give in the video. If I tell you to pause the video and work on a problem, please pause the video and work on the problem. All right, so let's get started. We are going to look at this problem at the top of page 42. So follow along with me. It says Eric wants to buy a video game that costs $24, but he only wants to spend 40% of his savings. So how much must Eric save in order to buy the game? So let's think about this. He wants to buy a game that costs $24. So the game costs $24. But he only wants to spend 40% of his savings. So think of it here. That $24 is the 40% of his savings he wants to spend. The 24 is the part. We have to find the whole. How much Eric must save in order to buy the game. So what's the total amount of money he must save to buy that game? All right, so the first strategy we're going to look at is the picture it strategy. And this says you could use a double number line to find the whole when a part and the percent are given. So remember, we know, and I'll switch to purple here, that the game costs $24 and that $24 is 40% of his savings. So notice here in the double number line, they have money on top. So we've got $0 and we've got a question mark here because that's the whole we have to find out. So remember, this is what we need to answer. Percent, well, that's easy because you start at 0 and you end at 100. So that's, you don't have to think of it. And also notice we have it split into 10% increments. So we're counting by tens in the percent part. All right, you good so far? Because now let's show you how to use the double number line. Let me erase some of this here. So first, we know that the $24 is 40% of what his savings is supposed to be. So we have that whole ratio right there. Okay, now, things we could do here is we know, for example, we can find half of 24 and half of 40. So half of 40 is 20. Half of 24 is 6. We could also say, I'll switch to orange here, we could find half of 20. Half of 20 is 10. Half of 6 is 3. So we can use our strategy of finding halves of things to fill in the rest of this double number line. Now the cool thing is we will be able to use these numbers to answer the question in a little bit. But we're not answering it yet because remember we have to figure out how much Eric will save in order to buy the game. But let's go look down at the model it strategy using a table. Now the table is a lot like the double number line. So we have dollars on top and percent on bottom, just like in the double number line. And we also know the percent spent, the 100%, is going to be the total savings that Eric has. So that in that orange box is what we need to find out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that ratio that we know. Remember up at the top, I'm circling it with orange there. $24 is going to be 40% of his savings. So I can just write that down. $24 is going to be 40% of his savings. And I can half that. $12 is going to be 20%. $6 is going to be 10%. Just like I did in the double number line. It just depends on what method you like better. And again, I'm going to be using these numbers to find that answer in a little bit. All right, so keep that in mind as we go to the next page. Okay, so now we're on the next page. We're on the top of page 43, and we're actually going to answer the question. So we're going to start and we're going to work on 9 here. Now, before I start, I'm going to get a copy of the table and the double number line so we can see them. Okay, so I have the double number line up here, and I have the table down here. So I have them both. We can use either one to answer question 9. So let's read it. It says, look at the table and the double number line. How many dollars is 10% of the total? So let's answer that one first. So 10% of the total is $6, right? And you can see it in both. 10% of the total is $6. So that one is going to be $6. Now the next question says, let me get my pointer ready. How many times greater than 10% is 100? So this one you're going to answer. It wants to know to go from 10% to 100%. 10% to 100%. How many times greater is it? So write your answer, how many times greater, on that line there. Okay, so you should have 10 times, because 10 times 10 is 100. Last, so how many times greater than 6 is the dollar amount that equals 100%? So it wants to know, do the same to the 6 to get the dollar amount that equals 100%. How many times greater? Okay, well that's also going to be 10 times greater, right? And think of it here, I'll use the table. If 10 times 10 is 100, well that means 6 times 10 will get your answer. All right, you're good so far with 9. Okay, let's go on to 10. All right, so for number 10, we're going to answer that. Now notice I moved the double number line in the table down here so you could see. It says look at the double number line. Using the ratio 6 to 10, explain how you can find an equivalent ratio that has 100 in the second quantity. Okay, let's talk about that. Using the ratio 6 to 10. Okay, how can you find an equivalent ratio that has 100 in the second quantity? So it wants to know, if you know the ratio is 6 to 10, how can you find blank over 100? All right, so pause the video and write a short sentence to answer that question, then restart it. Go. Okay, so you should have something along the lines of this for number 10. All right, so if 10 times 10 is 100, then 6 times 10 is 60. So the ratio will be 60 to 100. Okay, again, you do not need my exact words, but you should have something along the lines that you would multiply by 10 in order to find that equivalent ratio. If you said that in your own words, you're probably going to be good. So then, let's look at the next questions. So now, what I'm going to have you do here is, knowing what we just did, I want you to answer number 11 and 12 on your own real quick. So pause the video, do both of those, restart it. Remember, if you're not sure, you give it your best shot. No big deal. Okay, do 11 through 12 now. Restart the video when you're done. Go. So, let's check your answers to 11 and 12. You should have them both done. 11 says, how much does Eric have to save in order to buy the game? Well, we figured out that the same as 6 to 10 is 60 to 100, so we know that he has to save $60. So that's your answer to 11. And that was just the number in the top of the ratio in number 10. 12 says, what does the answer to the problem mean? Fill in the blanks to help you understand. So let's see if you were able to fill in these blanks. So first, 10 times 10 is 100. And 10 times $6 is $60. If $24 is 40%, then $60 is 100%. So 40% of what would be $24? Well, 40% of $60 is $24. So if you had all those blanks right, good. Give yourself a C for number 12. If you missed any, pause the video to do those. And now we're going to go on to the next two problems. Okay, so now we're on to 13 and 14. So in 13, you're going to answer that one on your own. And here you might have something different if you're not sure. Give it your best shot. Down 14, how can you find the whole when you know part of the part and the percent? So think about what we did with the tables. And I want a couple sentences, 2, 3, maybe 4, explaining how you can find the whole. All right, pause the video, do 13 and 14 now. Go. All right, so for number 13, here's what I know. We know 40% of $60, right? We're just checking here. Which 40% is the fraction, 40 over 100, times 60 as a fraction is times 60 over 1. Remember, we did this in yesterday's lesson. So to solve this, I would do 40 times 60. Remember, you do 4 times 6 is 24, and add the 2 zeros. And then 100 times 1 is 100. And then remember to do 2400 divided by 100 just means get rid of those 2 zeros, which is $24. And remember, that's the price of the game. So we are just checking to show that we had the right answer. So if you had that for 13, good. If not, you can pause it and make corrections. And in 14, where you had to write a couple sentences, it says, how can you find the whole when you know part and the percent? So yours might be different than mine, but I'm going to write down some of my ideas. Okay, so first, I can use a double number line or a table to find the whole. Now I'm going to say the table and number line help me find other ratios that can be used to find the whole. Now remember, you don't need my exact answers, but I want to just explain what I just said. Remember I said I could use a double number line or a table to find the whole, and it helps me find other ratios. Do you remember in the original problem, the game was going to cost $24, which was going to be 40% of Eric's savings. And we have that to find 12 out of 20, and we have that to find 6 out of 10. And then we use 6 out of 10 to find the whole, which was 60. Now let me just show you something else you could have done. I actually didn't need to go down to 6 out of 10. Depends on how good your times tables are. So let's pretend for a second that I didn't go down to there. So I started with 24 to 40, and I halved it to get 12 to 20. Well, watch this in orange. If you know that 20 times 5 is 100, well, if you multiply 12 times 5, you get 60. So you did not have to go down to 6 out of 10. You can do lots of different ratios to help you find the whole. All right, so that's my answer to number 14. Remember, pause anytime you need a little more time to make corrections, as long as you're thinking about your corrections. All right, so now we're going to go down to 15 and 16. Ooh, I mean just number 15. There is no number 16. So let's read it, and we're going to get you set up. So 15 says, we'll read the directions. Use what you've just learned about finding the whole to solve this problem. Show your work on a separate sheet of paper. So it says, 150 students at York Middle School took part in the school cleanup. This is 30% of the school's total students. How many students go to York Middle School? So think about it. The students they give us, the 150, are the ones who took part in the cleanup. They're the 30%. You have to find the whole, the total students who go to York Middle School. Now, the first thing I want you to think about is if you plan on doing a double number line or if you'd rather do a table. Now, I'm just going to get you set up with both. You don't have to do both of these. And if you're like, you know what, I can solve this without waiting for Romanyshyn, go ahead and do it. So first off, if you do a table, it might look something like this. Okay. split it into a couple sections. And the bottom is going to be my percent, and the top is going to be my students. And remember, your answer, you're finding the whole. So we need to figure out what 100%, and I'm going to put a red question mark right there, is. Now what you need to do is use the other numbers in the problems to come up with ratios that can get that percent, that red question mark. Now, if you want to do a double number line, they might take a little bit longer to do, but they're not that bad. So I'm going to do 2 number lines. And the bottom is going to be the percent again, and the top is going to be the students again. Now remember, the percent, 100%, is what we need to figure out as students. So I'm going to put a red question mark there. Now in the double number line though, we have 0%. And you've got to figure out how to split this. Now what I would do you see how it's 30% in the problem? I would probably count by tens. See if I can do this here. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And I would do percents like that. And then I would do the same thing up here. All right, and figure out the number of students. Now 0 students is 0%. So you can copy one of those if you want to get started, but choose one of those methods. Answer 15, pause it. As soon as you're done, restart the video to see how you did. Go. All right, so you should be done with number 15. Now, as I answer the question, I'm going to do it with the table and with the double number line. So let's get started. So remember, 150 students at the middle school took part in the cleanup, and that's 30%. So I'm just going to write, doesn't matter where in the table, 30% is 150 students. Now down below, my 30% is 150 students will go there. But I am going to continue with my other percents, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. If you didn't write them, no big deal. So we need to figure out, remember the goal is to figure out how many students was the whole, the total amount. So if I were using the table, one of the things I might do is say, okay, let me find 10%. Now to go from 30 to 10, I just divide 30 by 3, right? So if I do 150 divided by 3, I get 50. Now that I have, if 50 students is 10%, I can figure out what 100 is. So I'll switch to purple here, because I know 10 times 10 is 100. 50 times 10 is 500, which will be our answer. But let me go down here, we'll show you the same thing with a double number line. So remember, I know 30% is 150 students. So I divided by 3 and I figured out 10% is 50 students. Now the cool thing is you could just keep counting by 50, 50, 100, 150, 200. You could fill in the whole double number line if you want. So 250. Or you can say, I know 10 times 10 is 100. Do the same thing with the 50 to get your answer. 50 times 10 is 500. So the answer to 15 was how many students go to York Middle School? You would say 500 students. All right, if you had 500 students, give yourself a big fat C. And guess what? You're done with this video. So remember, if you made any mistakes, pause it, go back, correct mistakes, and you can rewatch parts of the video for anything you're stuck on or need extra practice with. Thanks for watching, guys.